How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is Deck Ready, my channel all about the Steam Deck. I'm gonna take these off now. I bought these Art the Clown glasses for one video, so I figured I'd try them out on Deck Ready. In today's video, I have three topics to cover. First of all, the Steam console. It's real, and we now know a lot more about it. Second on the list, we're gonna talk about how SteamOS is branching out. And third, this new game that is my most hyped game of 2025 is going to run well on the Steam Deck. I'm calling it now. Real quick, I got a PSA on micro SD cards. Obviously, because Christmas is coming up, Amazon is running sales left and right. And right now, the Samsung micro SD cards are on sale. You can get the medium plus speed one for $70. It's 1 terabyte. And then you can get the max speed one that's also 1 terabyte for $90. The $90 one is a good price. I think it's solid. Usually they're $100 to $120. So you're saving a little bit of money there, but $70 for the reduced speed, I think is the one I would go for, just because, it takes forever to install patches on an SD card, whether it's fast or slow. So if you get the faster one, you're saving seconds. You're not saving full minutes or anything like that. So you're already going to have long patch time. So I would just go for the really cheap one if you're in need of a micro SD card. All right, let's get into the meat of this video. You guys know I have been begging for this for so long. A Steam console that is kind of like what we saw back in the day when SteamOS 2.0 came out and they released the Steam machines and they were pretty bad. Valve didn't actually make the hardware. I think the only ones that actually came out were from Alienware. I was so excited about that. I remember I was a junior in college when this all happened, and I was like, oh man, big picture is so cool. The idea of a console-based PC you could just plug into your TV sounds awesome. The Steam controller is underrated, and then the consoles just weren't ready for prime time. And I see a lot of people saying they already tried that and it didn't work. But based on what we have with the Steam Deck, it's very clear that they figured out how to make hardware that works correctly versus back then. I don't know what year that was, probably 2012 or 2013. There's been a big jump in the quality of their hardware between the Valve Index and of course the Steam Deck. So just because it failed the first time doesn't mean they shouldn't try it again. I mean, they have a great console-like platform with the Steam Deck. They should expand it to the TV as well to kind of try and fight back against the bad practices of Sony and Microsoft. We need someone with a digital-only machine to kind of disrupt things with actual good prices, because the biggest fear about discs going away on the Xbox and the PlayStation 5 is that games are just going to stay super expensive forever. They're going to get more expensive, and gaming is going to price a ton of people out of the hobby. So if you have a company like Valve coming in with their own hardware that actually has great sales throughout the entire year and gives you cheap prices on the games, and then you can take them on the go with stuff like the Steam Deck, you can use them on your regular gaming PC. I mean, that makes PC gaming a lot more enticing to a lot more people. But let's get into these leaks. They're all coming from Brad Lynch. He's the guy who leaks everything, whether it's the Steam Controller 2, the Deckard headset, and now the Fremont Steam console that's being worked on by Valve. And this looks like it's well into production. It's being made by Quanta Computer, apparently, or at least they're giving advice to Valve on how to build this thing. They're the people who actually construct the Steam Decks for Valve. So the company that makes the Steam Deck is on record giving advice to Valve about this potential console that goes under your TV, which sounds excellent. And like I've been saying over the past few weeks with all these videos where I say don't believe X sites lies, when we get updates like, oh, DLSS 3 is in SteamOS 3.0's beta now, and oh, it's being built to work with ARM chips. These articles that are like, oh, is the Steam Deck 2 going to be an NVIDIA device? Oh, is the Steam Deck 2 going to have ARM? That's not what's happening. It's very obvious. We'll talk about it in the next story that they're building out compatibility with all these different chips and different manufacturers' products because they want SteamOS on as many devices as possible. Or they want you, if you want it on your device, to be able to install it on any device you might own. It's not going to run the Steam Deck 2. Because this console, the Fremont as it's known, is being built to work with an AMD platform, which makes sense because it's supposed to be part of the Steam Deck family, right? You'd want to maximize compatibility between everything you can play on your Steam Deck and this under TV console style machine. The thing I really want to know about is how console-like is this going to be? Is it going to be single SKU? Is it going to use an APU instead of a dedicated GPU and CPU? Is it going to be built like a PC? Those are all the questions that I want answered, because if this ends up being something where there's multiple SKUs, they have the APU version that's a little bit more performant than the Steam Deck, it targets 1080p that you can then upscale to 1440p or 4K, that'd be cool as an entry-level device. But if they have a higher range device that uses CPU and GPU as dedicated components, that would be excellent. Like, I would shell out like the amount of money that they want to charge for it just to get something like that, because I would love to be able to replace my Windows laptop that I have over there. It is nothing but problems using Windows. It's just constant stuttering because of E cores and P cores and all this crap. There's CPU stuttering in a lot of games. Basically any game that uses Unreal Engine 5 that magically disappears if an Unreal 5 game runs on the Steam Deck. Like, you run into like bottleneck performance issues, but the stuttering magically disappears when you're playing on SteamOS 3.0 versus Windows 11. And I use that device, that laptop, exclusively for gaming. So I don't need all the extra Windows crap that's thrown in there. And if a device like this Fremont machine that Valve is building runs SteamOS 3.0, that's like a console style interface with a desktop that you can access whenever you want. But the one that it defaults to is the console style interface, which is awesome. And the coolest thing is Valve has kind of solved the problem that every other hardware manufacturer has had throughout history, like in terms of consoles. Like, if you're developing a new console like the Xbox or the Dreamcast or the PlayStation 2, it's all about the library that's available. Phil Spencer talks about this a lot. They lost the most important generation to lose, which is the Xbox One and PS4 generation, because games went digital during that generation. Most people started shifting towards buying games digitally versus physically on their consoles. And then when the Xbox Series X and PS5 were on the horizon, I mean, it's a no-brainer decision. Do you want to take all your games forward that you built up through the PS4 generation, or do you want to start all over with Xbox and subscribe to Game Pass and get access to everything there? I mean, it was a good idea, but I think obviously, just because of the way things shook out, most people went towards the PlayStation because they already had a ton of PlayStation games. But with the Steam console, you're taking your entire history of gaming library forward. Every game you own on Steam is going to be built to be compatible with this thing. The only roadblock they're going to run into is the same roadblock they run into with the Steam Deck, which is, of course, anti-cheat and games that have online access that don't allow you to play on the Steam Deck. Stuff like Destiny 2, stuff like every EA game now, like Battlefield and all that, where they took out the anti-cheat that worked on Steam Deck, Apex Legends. I mean, the list goes on and on of live service games that don't work on the Steam Deck. But as time has gone on, the list of games that do work on the Steam Deck has been steadily growing. Like, I still play Diablo 4 regularly, and it's awesome. And now I just saw that Marvel Rivals works on the Steam Deck. So while Overwatch 2 definitely works, I feel like a lot of people are going to start gravitating towards that because that game's absolutely exploding. So if you're one of the naysayers that are like, Valve already tried this, they shouldn't try it again, I don't get why. Like, are you scared you're going to want to buy it? Like, I get the idea of not wanting to feel like you're going to have to spend a couple $1,000 to get an under TV console PC that Valve is working on. But like, the idea is so cool. I love the Steam Deck as a platform because of how easy it is to navigate and how I can take my saves with me on any device that I have Steam installed on, whether it's my laptop on my desk, my eventual gaming rig that I want to build, this eventual Fremont PC style console, or the Steam Deck, or even the ROG Ally. Like, no matter what device I have, as long as I can install Steam on it, I have access to all my games and all my saves, and it's an awesome experience. So being able to do that on the TV, sign me the fuck up, man. That sounds excellent. Speaking of Steam growing, that brings me to the second news story on this list. Valve has updated their product guidelines that kind of hint where they want the future of SteamOS to go. So these are badges that you see on PlayStation games or Xbox game discs, or even the fabled boxed PC games that you used to buy back in the day. Like, if they came with a Steam code for the game, you would install the game to your hard drive at the time off the disc, but then you'd have to punch the code into Steam. It would activate it in your library. The game would patch itself and everything would be good to go. And they've updated that branding to have a lot more badges. There's a ton of different badges for different categories of Steam compatibility, but the one that really stands out to me is the one that says powered by SteamOS. Now, there's a few things this could be signaling. The first thing, of course, is that they could be starting to roll out the Steam Deck into actual retailers. You might not have to just buy it from Valve anymore and wait for it to ship. It would be so cool to be able to see a Steam Deck with a whole kiosk and everything in Best Buy or Target. And if you get a box like that, it's not going to be the special box that it ships in. It's going to be a packaged thing with like art on the box and everything like that. So you'd need a powered by SteamOS badge to put on the box. But the second possibility is that Valve is getting ready to work with other hardware manufacturers. Like for the ROG Ally 2, for example, what if instead of going with Windows, knowing that Microsoft is working on an Xbox handheld of their own, Asus kind of switches gears and goes to Steam? We know Valve is working on SteamOS for the the ROG Ally? What if it's not to bring it backwards to the ROG Ally and Ally X, but what if they're working on getting it working for the ROG Ally 2 that's eventually going to come out, or the Lenovo Legion Go 2? Any of these devices that have traditionally used Windows so far, they're open season for potentially having this powered by SteamOS badge on their box, and that's awesome. I used the ROG Ally X for about a month, and then I was like, I'm good. I love the Steam Deck. I love the platform. I love how comfortable it is in the hand, and I want to stick with that line of hardware. But there are a lot of people out there who like the ROG Ally line, or they like the Lenovo Legion Go line. And if Valve can kind of get a bigger grasp on the gaming market industry, or whatever you want to call it, through having SteamOS on these devices, I think that's good as a whole, because a consequence, or positive consequence of that, would be Microsoft actually getting their shit together and making Windows a good platform for gaming. I mean, no matter what, using the Game Pass app, using the Xbox app, using the Game Bar, it is a mess. It causes performance degradation in games. You can't use third-party frame limiters with most of the stuff on the Game Pass app. And when you have that app open in the background on your PC, you lose like 2 to 3 frames in a game that you're playing. Like, I was playing Hunt Showdown the other night. I can set my watch to that game running perfectly at a locked 60 FPS on high with no DLSS or DLAA, and then suddenly it's dropping to like 57, 58 when I'm loading into compounds. And I'm like, is this server side? Oh no, I have the Xbox app open in the background for some reason. I close it, immediately the game goes right back to running at a rock solid 60 FPS. So yeah, it would be nice if Valve, kind of getting a bigger grasp on the PC gaming industry as a whole, kind of inspired Microsoft to do basic things like let you use a controller for the keyboard when you're on Windows. Because while it's not really going to matter so much to me, someone who doesn't like subscription services and isn't the biggest fan of devices like the ROG Ally, there are a lot of people out there who like Windows and like gaming on Windows and like the ROG Ally, so give them a better experience as a whole as well. You got to look at this image. I have it on screen right now. There's a lot of VR hints and everything like that. I don't want to talk about VR too much on this channel because it's called Deck Ready, but I mean, it's called Deckard, so it is kind of deck ready, you know, like Deckard ready. I'm not going to start a VR channel or anything like that, but if you've been kind of holding off on VR or you've fallen out of love with it, I would recommend maybe getting one of these deals on a Quest 3S that are going on right now, because this last month or so has been insane for great VR games. You've got stuff like The Behemoth, you've got stuff like Metro Awakening, Arkham Shadow, and then we've got Aliens Rogue Incursion coming out soon. Like, that's a really good run of awesome games and potentially awesome games when it comes to Aliens. So yeah, I think VR, while for a while it wasn't worth paying attention to just because of the lack of support and software, it's finally kind of ramping up, and you're going to want to get in on board and kind of familiarize yourself with it before this Deckard comes out. But I want to see the Deckard. I want to see all this other hardware. Hopefully Valve announces it all soon. Anyway, that brings me to the third story of today's video, which is just me telling you about a game that I'm very excited for that I think is going to run on the Steam Deck, and that game is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I saw this game was coming out in February. They actually moved the release date up, and I was like, crap, I've never beat the first game, but I bought it, so I may as well start it. This game is made for the Steam Deck. I have sunk 22 hours into it over the past week, and I am not stopping anytime soon. You boot this game up, you go to the main menu, you set it to the medium preset, and you are good to go at a rock solid 30 FPS from that point. It does kind of stutter a little bit when you get into the town of Rattay, but I'll tell you right now, on my 4090 PC, when I get into Rattay, I get a single frame stutter, so I'm not holding that against the Steam Deck. Other than that, everything from combat to horse riding to exploration to arrow firing, all the stuff you have to do in this game to level your little loser Henry up to be the awesome knight that he is made to be, it works perfectly on the Steam Deck, and you actually get a little bit of an edge with one of the hardest things to do in this game, which is lockpicking. You use the trackpad to turn a ball until you find the sweet spot, and then you have to hold the left bumper for the lock itself to turn, and then using the trackpad instead of the joystick to move that ball around with the lock. It is so much better than doing it with a controller on a regular PC, as someone who's played on both devices. And the best part is, despite being an open world game, it's not padded and the story is excellent. You should play this game before the second game. The story is that good and that important to the second game, but I was kind of worried because it's been a few years. I think this game came out in like 2016 and the sequel's coming out in 2024. I was worried about it running on the Steam Deck, but there's a few pieces of evidence that lead me to believe it's going to run well in the Steam Deck. The first one is they put out the PC specs that you need, and while at first they seem high, they're doing the spec list without DLSS, which is awesome. I wish more developers did that. If you look at the spec list for like Indiana Jones or whatever, whatever. They list FSR or DLSS as required for some of the higher presets of that game. I think that's stupid. I like that this game is using non-DLSS or FSR presets for their settings. I read a preview on IGN. I know, not the best source for this stuff, but they got to play like a few hours of the game and they said this game's even better optimized than the first game. Like the guy who was playing was using like a 4070 PC and he said he still can't run the original game on Ultra, but this one he was running it pretty much maxed out and it was running at a rock solid 60 FPS with virtually no issues. Like it seems like the game is done and they're actually optimizing it. And the last good thing is that it's CryEngine. CryEngine is awesome. I don't know why more developers don't use it between Kingdom Come Deliverance and Hunt Showdown. It's the best performing engine I've experienced on PC in years and it looks incredible while you're still getting very high FPS in these games. So while you might have to drop the settings down to low or a mix of low and medium, I think we're going to be able to run this game into locked 30 FPS. And I know they love boosting Elden Ring as like the de facto Steam Deck game, but man, they should do this one. In my opinion, it's a much better experience than Elden Ring on the Steam Deck, and it really shows how amazing these open world action games can be if they are optimized in the first place. It's like, damn, when developers finish their games and actually optimize them, they can run on a variety of different hardware, whether it's high or low powered. That's crazy. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for you in today's video. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching and shape on.